Hello, Realty One Group agents. How are you? Tim Kelly Kiernan here. I am the managing broker of the Summerlin office, and I'm excited about doing this video on the RPA. So let me get my big head out of here, and we'll talk about the RPA. Residential Purchase Agreement, Joint Escrow Instructions. The date, of course, is the date that you're filling out the RPA. In this case, it's St. Valentine's Day, not St. Valentine's Day. It is St. Patrick's Day. My client's name is Derek Jeter. If it was two clients, two buyers, this button, I could put an and then I would put Mary Ann Jeter if there was a Mr. and Mrs. Jeter. In this case, there was only one purchaser, so I don't need to put the and. The buyer hereby offers to purchase, and here you're going to type in the address of the property. Okay. In this case, let me get rid of that. It is not a condo. So it's 1901 Summer Pine Court. Within a city or unincorporated area of Las Vegas, County of Clark, State of Nevada, zip code 89134. The parcel number is 13819323037. A little tidbit, the APN number is always 11 digits, just so you know. Line 6, 800,000 is the price we're offering. And again, it types it out. On the terms and conditions contained herein, I check off, does the buyer or does not the buyer intend to occupy the property? Very important. Okay, in this case, it is going to be his primary residence, and I am going to put buyer does. Okay, and just while you're doing this, in front of you, you will have the MLS sheet that has all of the information that you're going to need to put in here. And once you learn how to create a template and you put in the MLS number in Transaction Desk, a good portion of this information will auto-populate for you, like the APN number, the street address, things like that. Okay, but now we go to the buyer's offer. Paragraph 1, financial terms and conditions. Blank, earnest money deposit, EMD, is or some other version is presented with this offer. You always put or, and you're going to check off and put to be wired to escrow upon acceptance. Now, you might be wondering where I got this $25,000 from. Okay, I didn't just think of that off the top of my head. That number was in the MLS as the amount of money that the seller wants any buyer making an offer to put down as the earnest money deposit. Now, you can put more, that makes your offer look stronger, or you can put less, which makes your offer look weaker. So, and typically, you're going to put the amount there that's in MLS. Typically, it's 2% of the purchase price. So, on a $500,000 property, the earnest money deposit might be $10,000. Okay, so that gives you a guideline. Now, line 12, following the date of acceptance, earnest money to be deposited within 1 business day from acceptance of the offer as defined in section 24 herein, or I can put a number in here, blank business days if wired to. So do we want it to go within 1 day, be deposited to escrow, or do we want it to give us more time? We want to give our buyer more time. So you're always going to put the number 3 here on line 14. 3 business days, and again, it's wired to the escrow company. It's not wired to the buyer's broker's trust account, okay, or the seller's broker's trust account. None of that applies, okay? It's important that you understand that, because in other parts of the country, when people relocate to Nevada, they think they could just write out a check and give it to you, or wire the check to the seller's broker. No, it gets wired to the title company, quote unquote, the escrow holder, okay? Line 18, additional deposit. Here it's 0. Additional deposit to be placed in escrow on or before a certain date. In my 16 years, I've never put an additional deposit in here. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, okay? The only time that would happen is if my client did not have the $25,000 on line 11 as his EMD. So I would put $15,000 here, put $10,000 on line 18 to comprise the $25,000 that's asked for. But again, very seldom, if ever, will you use paragraph B under the buyer's offer. Now, number C, this agreement is contingent upon the buyer qualifying for a new loan. Okay. Now, I put $720,000 because that's the loan amount that my client's going to be borrowing from his mortgage company. He's buying a home for $800,000. He's putting 10% down, which is $80,000. So that means the balance is $720,000. That is what his loan will be for based on this offer. Okay, and you want to check off the type of loan that it is. In this case, it's a conventional loan. Okay, section D, this agreement is contingent upon the buyer qualifying to assume the following existing loans: conventional, FHA, and VA. Now, in my 16 years, I've done one assumable loan and it was for a veteran. This is not commonplace. You might think it is. It makes sense, but it's very difficult to do. A lot of moving parts. If your buyer wants to see if the seller will assume their current loan, talk to your manager about that. There are some things you have to know about beforehand, okay? Excuse me, if they were assuming a loan, you would fill in here what the interest rate is, what the term of it is, and all the other blank boxes that are here. Now, line 31, E, buyer to execute a promissory note secured by deed of trust per the terms in the financing addendum, which is attached herein. In my 16 years, I've done one of these. Okay, this is where, if you'll notice in the MLS sheet, it might say something like OWC, owner will carry. Not very common in Nevada. Okay, that means the seller is selling it for $800,000, but my buyer will make payments to the seller or the homeowner for 5 or 7 or 10 years at a certain interest rate, okay, and a certain amount of a deposit. Okay, again, if you see something in MLS, it says owner will carry. It appeals to your buyer. Go talk to your manager about it. They will help you fill out the financing addendum and see if it can happen moving forward. Number F, the balance of the purchase price, the balance of the down payment in good funds to be paid prior to close of escrow. Okay, so I came up with this $55,000 because, again, the purchase price is $800,000. We're putting down $25,000 as the EMD. Okay, he's putting down, like I said, 10%, which is $80,000. So the difference between $25,000 and $80,000 is the $55,000. Okay, a quick rule of thumb: when you're doing the RPA, line 11, line 22, and line 34, or even these other lines that have zeros, but let's assume they all have zeros. Line 11, 22, 34. They have to add up to line 37, the total purchase price. Okay, that's really important. So that's, if you've messed up on it, if your math is off, then 11 and 22 and 34 do not equal line 37. That's how you're going to know if you got it correct, that they all add up to what's on line 37.